Hello there, you aesthetically pleasing human being you. I'm Chris from Techspert, and today we're going to be checking out Motorola's Edge 40 Neo. The most affordable of Moto's flagship Edge phones, boasting an eye-pleasing water-resistant design, a punchy POLED panel, fast battery charging, and upgraded camera tech, all for just 300 British quids. I really bloody liked last year's Edge 30 Neo, so I got high hopes for this bad boy. So let's whip it on out the box, take you on a full-on tour of all the hardware, the software, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, as soon as I popped this box open, my immediate thought was, why does it suddenly smell like there was an explosion in a potpourri factory? And then I remembered it's because Motorola has partnered with a fragrance company called Firmenich, and they've created an official Motorola fragrance which they actually spray into the boxes for the Edge phones. I don't know why I'm sticking my nose right into the box, because honestly I think I could smell this from across the other side of the room. Is it good? Well, it's different. Kind of smells like somebody's crushed up a whole bunch of those awful Palmer Violet sweets and kind of scattered the dust to the wind. But then I've basically pretty much killed my scent glands through decades of Vindaloo and lager abuse, so I'm probably not the best person to judge. Anyway, besides a nose full of perfume, what else do you get bundled in the box? Well, you've got yourself a 68 watt power adapter, a USB Type-C cable, and Motorola has also kindly chucked in a protective case which is 100% constructed from plants. I reckon the humble plastic condom case may soon become an endangered species, but if it means good environment things, then hooray. Yeah. And it's kind of a head trip to think that this thing is constructed from plants. It is surprisingly stiff. It slaps onto the Motorola Edge 40 Neo like so, and doesn't really add too much extra bulk. And I do like how the case is pretty much the same colour as the actual phone itself, because it is a bit of a stunner. If I can get the bloody thing off again. Ow, my thumb's stuck. Ow, ow, ow. Okay, that is surprisingly difficult to remove. It is super rigid, and I've only had the 4 beers today, so I don't even have that as an excuse. But anyway, I would very much want to leave that case off because the Motorola Edge 40 Neo sports a stunning design. You've once again got a small selection of Pantone colours. This is the Caneel Bay. I mean, that's far too small for my knackered old eyes to make out, so you tell me. Proper stunning light blue. You can also grab it in Soothing Sea or Black Beauty. And both the Caneel Bay and the Soothing Sea models sport this lovely vegan leather style design. It's soft touch, so it feels gorgeous against the palm. And as always, pretty skinny as well, just 7.8mm thick. So seriously, everything about this phone's aesthetics just really stand out. I think most people would be surprised to hear that this is just a £300 smartphone. And as you can see there from the front end, pretty much non-existent bezels. You do have a slight curvature of that screen at the left and right edges. It is just a plastic frame, not a metal one sadly, but besides that, yep, gorgeous stuff. And weighs just 170 grams as well, so certainly feels very lightweight compared with some of the almighty mamas that have launched recently, the likes of the iPhone 15. Oh, and like the iPhone, it is IP68 water and dust resistant as well, so you can drop it in a sink, a bath, whatever, and just pluck it out, give it a towel and down, should be absolutely fine. Now, if you know Motorola, you know that they always slap a lovely vanilla stock version of Android on their smartphones. So similar to what you would get on a Pixel smartphone, for instance, you got your App Store, you got your Google Discover feed, drag down that notifications bar from wherever you fancy, you got all your toggles up here. And when you purchase the Edge 40 Neo, Motorola is guaranteeing you 2 Android OS updates, but bear in mind that one of those updates will be to Android 14, which is about to release into the wild in just a couple of weeks or so. So you get Android 14 and then Android 15 next year, and then that's it. But you do also get 3 years of bi-monthly security updates, so at least the smartphone will stay safe and secure. Keep you going for a few years, which ain't bad at all for a 300 quid blower, although not quite as good as some rivals from the likes of OnePlus and Samsung. Most of the pre-installed apps are Google's own services, otherwise the bits that I've slapped on, although I've noticed a few bits of crapware creeping onto Motorola smartphones of late, the likes of Booking.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, whatever the bloody hell Mist Play is. Thankfully you can basically tell these to piss right off, quickly uninstall them. Booking.com, get.com. And Motorola has stuffed a small handful of its own apps on here as well. So for instance, you've got the likes of Family Space. This does exactly what you would expect. Create a space on your phone where your kids can play safely without accidentally opening up your porn collection and discovering what a horrible, sordid person daddy really is. You've also got Moto Secure, which builds on the very solid security foundations that Android has already laid down. This adds in bonus bits like that secure folder feature. I also like the pin pad scramble. As you can see from this little graphic, that jumbles up the pin pad when you go to unlock your smartphone, so it's much harder for someone to peer over your shoulder and memorize your pin. And one of my favorites is Motorola's Ready For. This allows you to quickly and easily pair up with a PC or a tablet. And you can share your apps, your files, and stream content to that larger screen. And then there's the straight up Moto app, which I absolutely adore. This allows you to personalize and customize your smartphone in all kinds of different ways. Changing up the fonts, the colors, wallpapers, icons, all kinds of stuff. You've also got some great gesture control in here. I'm still kind of sore that they took away the one-handed mode. But the likes of flip for do not disturb, very handy indeed. And they've of course still got my favorite, good bit of fast torch. And as for the storage, well, you can pick up the Motorola Edge 40 Neo in either 128 gigs or 256. I've got the 256. Good chunk of that already used, but a massive majority of that is by bloody Genshin Impact. Sadly not expandable via microSD memory card. You've only got space in that SIM slot for a single SIM, in fact. And when you switch on the Motorola Edge 40 Neo, it is an in-display optical fingerprint sensor, which so far, touch wood, seems to do the job very nicely. Super responsive. You're not hanging around, just a quick tap and you're in. And you do have face unlock as an alternative option to that fingerprint sensor, though it's not quite as secure. Now thankfully it's no longer difficult to find a stunning OLED display on a smartphone around the £300 price point, but the Motorola Edge 40 Neo certainly does not disappoint with its bright and poppy 6.55-inch POLED panel. It's a full HD plus resolution display like pretty much all of its rivals, so visuals nice and crisp. You've got 10-bit color support and HDR10 plus streaming support. And as I mentioned before, that screen pretty much fills the front end here. You've got a tiny wee cutout selfie cam orifice up top. Barely gets in the way of the action when you go full screen. And the brightness tops off at around 1300 nits, so you'll have absolutely no troubles whatsoever seeing what is going on even when you go outdoors. On a sunny day, hey, Britain, probably not going to happen for a while, so don't even worry about it. And that refresh rate maxes out at 144 Hz, so creamy smooth when you're flicking through the UI when you're using supported apps. Sadly, the Moto Edge 40 Neo doesn't seem to have an always-on display option built in, so you'll have to use some sort of third-party override if you want a bit of that in the go. Otherwise, it's a case of double tap or shake the phone to wake it up a bit. And of course, one possible worry when dealing with a curved display like this is what happens if I'm clutching the phone rather tightly? Will it bulk up the screen responsiveness? And the answer to that is sometimes it can, yes. For instance, if your thumb maybe strays a tiny bit onto the edge of that display, then sometimes apps do refuse to open. Yeah, as long as that palm flab isn't straying on there too much, then generally okay. And the Motorola Edge 40 Neo boasts a stereo speaker setup, but is it any good? Let's check it out. And there's no ultra wide angle shoot or anything on here either. Those final two lenses are basically your bog standard 2 megapixel macro and depth sensor bollocks. And those speakers are perfectly fine for a budget £300 smartphone. Not exactly well balanced. That bottom speaker is definitely pulling the majority of the weight here, but not too tinny even when you max out that volume and reasonably powerful. But what about the power? Well, stuffed inside of the Motorola Edge 40 Neo is MediaTek's Dimensity 7030 chipset backed by 12 gigs of RAM. And certainly if you're the impatient type, well, no worries, apps pop up instantly and run nice and smoothly. And I gotta say, that Moto Edge 40 Neo performed even better than I expected when gaming. The likes of Genshin Impact, quite a memory guzzling title, played with a pretty fluid frame rate on the medium graphic settings and even coped pretty admirably on the higher graphic settings. Quite a few dips in that frame rate, but it still remained playable. That curved display was pleasingly responsive, and I found that even when I was gaming for a good hour or so, this smartphone did not heat up. The Dimensity 7030 certainly energy efficient, does its job well. And as usual with Motorola smartphones, part of that Moto app is some proper dedicated gaming tools, which definitely come in handy. You've got the likes of the high performance mode if you are playing games like Genshin. You can block calls, block notifications, take a screenshot, even record the action for posterity's sake. And even if you do a lot of gaming, a lot of media streaming, whatever, you should still get a full day of play from the Motorola Edge 40 Neo from a single charge. You've got a massive 5000 mAh capacity cell crammed inside of this thing. And of course, as I mentioned, energy efficient Dimensity 7030 chipset certainly helps. As does the fact you've got that nice clean stock version of Android. You don't have tons of stuff piled on top of it. And even if you do need to give it a quick boost at any point, if you're going out for the evening and you are low on juice, well, no worries whatsoever. You've got 68 watt wired charging support here on the Motorola Edge 40 Neo. So bung a cable in its bottom for around 10 minutes and that battery percentage will shoot right up. However, there is sadly no wireless charging support here on the Neo. Not really a massive shocker because it's still quite a rare feature at this sort of price. So now let's finish up this lovely Motorola Edge 40 Neo unboxing and hands-on review with a squint at that camera tech. And what you got here is a simple dual lens setup. You've got a 50 megapixel primary camera with optical image stabilization built in, and that's backed by a basic 13 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter. Now, if you know your way around a Motorola smartphone, you'll probably be quite familiar with the camera app by now. It's fairly user-friendly, despite the fact it can be quite intimidating at first. Lots of toggles to play around with, lots of different camera modes. But Motorola has tried to make things as easy as possible on you. So for instance, if it detects you're trying to shoot a human subject, it will make handy suggestions like switch to portrait mode. And the Edge 40 Neo can also automatically switch on the night mode when it detects the lighting is a bit crap. And then swapping between the primary and the ultra wide angle shooter is just a case of tapping down here. You've also got fast access to a macro mode, and you can digitally zoom in up to 2 times like so, and then you can continue to zoom in by pinching. And here's just a small smattering of sample shots that I snapped around the old homestead in my first 24 hours with the Edge 40 Neo. Overall, for a budget friendly blow, it seems pretty capable. In indoor situations, things get a bit softer, a bit warmer, but that night mode certainly helps out when the lighting is proper cack. The light to the portrait mode is dependable as ever, really helps your subject to stand out. Of course, if the camera is the #1 priority for you, you're a stickler for that photo quality, I'd say maybe try and bump up your budget a bit and grab the Pixel 7a instead, but otherwise the Motorola Edge 40 Neo will certainly do the job for capturing all those lovely family memories. And Motorola has chucked on a dedicated Pro mode with fast access to settings like the white balance and the ISO levels, and you can also use this to shoot RAW format images or RAW and JPEG. And if you want to shoot some home movies, well, you can do so at up to 4K resolution, although if you want to bump up the frame rate to 60 frames per second, well, that does max out at full HD resolution. And here's a wee bit of Ultra HD resolution video action captured by the Motorola Edge 40 Neo. Stabilization's not too bad when you're moving about, the audio pickup seems fine. So yeah, should do the job again for those simple shareable clips. And then finally, if we flip around to that floating selfie cam, well, it's a 32 megapixel selfie shooter, captures 8 megapixel images using 4-in-1 pixel binning. And that selfie shooter is fine. I didn't look like complete arse juice in any of my shots. Colors were quite muted, however, but you know, indoors it copes alright. And in very low light, you've got a blind and screen flash feature. And you can once again shoot up to 4K resolution video using that front-facing selfie cam, and the audio pickup seems absolutely fine, so should do the job for a basic bit of blogging, otherwise your video chat action. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a wonderful wee nutshell is the fresh new Motorola Edge 40 Neo. Bit of a cracker for that £300 price point, some pretty decent specs, and of course, rather stunning design. And it'll even smell quite nice when you yank it out that box. What do you guys reckon? Have you actually rocked the Motorola Edge 40 Neo yourself? Be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. I've got some more Motorola action coming at you very shortly, the Moto G84 and G54. Please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell, all usual YouTube guff, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.